We're live. Welcome everyone. We got Mike in Toronto today. Kevin Allen is joining us now just as we speak. He is coming on board, and we just went live, Kevin. So we're going to bring Kevin in now, and we're going to be talking about the NHLPA voters poll today, along with the standings, which are still fascinating, still to be determined. But Russ, first, what do you got?
Well, just going to talk a minute about the NFL draft, but really about drafts in general. So, I'm not one that likes to hear anymore that, well, your team scored an A in the draft on day one. They didn't make any mistakes. They were perfect.
I thought you were talking about drafts in general. They're not constitutional. That's what
I
think.
Right. Because I got a text, hey, you got 3 of the top 30. Yeah, ranked by a lot of different people. I do the same thing for hockey. I get it. But it's still only a part of an equation. And I always have to warn people.
Yeah.
You get the player, then it's up to the player, and it's also up to your player development, and then it's also up to the coach who's going to use them. And those things are all really important as to how a guy develops. So just because you get a guy, I'll use the example of the guy, the Jets got a guy named Sauce, right? He already has a nickname. He never gave up a touchdown in college football. Well, my instant retort to that was, his first game, he'll give up a touchdown because that's the narrative for the Jets. Now, it doesn't mean he'll be a bad player, but it's just the Jets once drafted a guy. I want to say he was from Iowa, one of those great schools, offensive lineman, Mike Haight, never missed a game in college.
Right.
Well, not only did he never miss a game in college, he missed his first game. He missed a bunch of games. He probably played 30 games in his whole pro career. So, again, the guy the Jets got, he's from a school like Cincinnati. They don't play against a lot of great teams. So there's a lot of guesswork in this. And so I can't be over the moon. I'm happy that they got Garrett Wilson, rather. He's the one wide receiver I identified as being the best. So the fact that my team got a best of anything in this draft makes me happy. I'll switch to Kev real quick, and then we'll go to you, Mike. Because the Aiden Hutchinson story was a great story. It'll make a great movie, but will he be a good player for the Lions? That's probably the bigger question.
Yeah, I think most people, Russ, if they think about it, understand whether it's the NHL draft or the NFL draft that you have to look at the acorn and envision the tree. I think that people get excited about it, but I would say from a spectacle standpoint, and I just talked about this with another friend of mine because I thought maybe it was just me, and he goes, "No, I was exactly the same way." That had to be one of the best drafts I've ever watched,
sure,
because of the way it zipped along. For one thing, teams got it all together and they moved it along. And so many trades were made. And the other thing is the one thing that's different about the NFL draft, and I talked about this the other day, is in the NHL, the draft, our interest in the draft is far greater than it was when I first started covering the league.
Yeah.
Before no one paying attention. Now it's fun. We've added some
draft with Ken O'Brien and all the other quarterbacks. They showed it from ESPN. There were 15 people there.
But now, in the old days in the NHL draft, nobody knew anything about the players. Now there's a lot of rankings of the players. There's a lot of mock drafts that adds an element to it. But the one thing about the NFL draft, in addition to the fact they had a lot of trades that zipped along, even some of the logistics elements, like the hugging of the players, which, started out and in the beginning, I think people were looked at and go, "Oh, come on, how contrived it can be." And my wife made the point, she doesn't know anything about it. She said, "That's incredible. These players were coming in and hugging the commissioner." And all I could think was, imagine if Gary Bettman tried to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's a good element to it. That the people add to it. It just kind of adds.
About the mic going out though, when they were supposed to say, we're on the clock, we didn't hear anything.
No, and the fact that that airplane hangar style thing caused an echo in the beginning also was kind of funny as well.
Yeah.
But the other element I was going to bring to it is I was fascinated because I never knew this before, that when they rate the success, obviously in NFL it's a little bit easier. Most of these first rounders are going to help their teams. Historically, that's true. Now there are some busts, as Russ pointed out, and some exceed expectations and all that. But their definition of success is far different than we do in the NHL.
Oh,
In the NHL, we define success usually in terms of games played. There, they define success in terms of reaching the second contract with the same team, which I found really kind of fascinating. That's not how
the best player in the draft. They said, Mike, you might get 3 contracts out of him, and I saw that too. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it just speaks to the longevity of players in the NFL versus the NHL. But
Well,
go ahead, Mike. Yeah, go ahead.
And that's the reason why it was strange that yesterday's draft was so strange, and one quarterback got taken and no running backs, and how the league has changed. And the one quarterback, I'm pretty sure Pickett is 24 years old. He's older than Josh Allen. And Josh Allen's been in the league for 3 years, so it's like, or 4 years, so it's bizarre. I'm always curious about these players and just to touch on the one thing that you mentioned, Kev, watching Goodell hug a 6'5", 370-pound defensive tackle. Let's just say it was bizarre. I mean, the guy enveloped him. It wasn't a hug. It was like a. But I would. One thing I can say is,
I have to say that's what happens.
Yeah. Well, one guy picked Goodell up.
That's right. Right. But I thankfully, like I said this yesterday in preparation for the draft.
Yeah.
The Bills were taking a pick at 25, and they said the last 3 drafts that pick was after 11 o'clock, and all the places that we were going to go to, a bunch of friends were going to go to, closed at either 10 or 11, and we're like, are we going to get kicked out before the Bills pick? But because it went so damn quick, they picked their pick at 10:30.
Didn't it start in the afternoon now, like the draft?
At 5 o'clock their time.
Yeah, let me make one to the point, because I think we could learn from this in the NHL too. I think the importance of a good analyst. At one point during the NFL draft, 4 defensive players were taken in the first 4 picks, and the first 2 were defensive ends. And who's the guy that's on Monday Night Football, or was on Monday Night?
Booger McFarland.
McFarland.
Yeah, Booger McFarland. He made the point. He goes, what we're saying in this draft is, we're coming after your quarterbacks.
Right. That was a good point.
It was great analysis, and it made everybody kind of go, whoa. Yeah. That's right. And it is funny, and Mike's point about running backs is amazing. When I was growing up, it was all about running backs.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to be. Now they are almost obsolete. Now, you still need them, and they're important parts because everything else. But, that's not how we build offenses. We build them with wide receivers and quarterbacks, and 6 of those went in the first round.
Yeah, that's – I always thought that the drafts in general, like, they need to have more – more Russ Cohen's and Shane Malloy's on there, to be honest. I mean, the reality of these things is, me and a lot of these insiders and you, Kevin, I think we don't really know prospects. I mean, it's not like really something that we, and yet, and Elliot Freeman and Darren Dreger and those guys they're all good, but I don't really think they know the prospects either. I mean, how could they if they're covering, hockey as intensely as they are?
But that's not their shtick. Okay? The shtick is for Craig Button or Bob McKenzie or Sam Constantino, Elliot and Darren and LeBron.
Guys, Craig Button's good, no question about it. And these guys know what they're talking about. But we need more. We need more of the other.
I'll tell you what. I think SiriusXM kind of does it right. They put me on pre and post. Right. They used to have me on, but they used to get worried about too many voices during the first round, and especially if there are trades, will you ever get to talking about players? So I get that, and they do have Shane on all the time. And I think on the radio, I can never talk about the TV because I'm always on the radio. I never see the televised portion. But I think on the radio, they get it right because I come in, I've got like all these different players I want to talk about passionately before the draft starts. They pose these hard questions at me. Who's going to, is this going to be a first rounder? All that kind of stuff. And then after we surmise it for about a half hour, and I think it works really well. I don't ever get to watch the TV one, so I can't really speak to it.
Yeah, I do think they've and I'm just speaking even to the NHL, they've done a much better job because I think what's really important is the video.
Yeah.
And when a guy gets drafted, we usually see video of him now. And if he's a goal scorer, we see goal scoring. Now, they took it to the nth degree last night in the NFL. I don't know if you guys were watching, but at one point we saw the Iowa center win a wrestling match against a guy who's on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now.
Well, we have just an unbelievable amount of content available out there.
Yeah, but here's the one that shocks me, and Russ probably will have to help me, or maybe Mike. The USC wide receiver who can caught a ball one-handed, and the other analyst said compared him to a player. I think it was a player who passed away, former NFL player. But anyway, compared him to a player, and he even said, I asked my video people to find a comparison video of the two players, and it's the exact same catch.
Wow.
Like it was so remarkable. The guy, the USC receiver, pulls it in with one hand and then falls out of bounds, and they shift to the NFL guy who's doing it in an NFL game, one-handed catch, and then falling out of bounds. It was just remarkable. And then comparison of Lynn Swann and the Ohio State guy was exactly the same.
Okay. Yeah, but the problem with that was, Kev, is that most people watching want to see highlights of the player that that was just drafted. We don't want to see pictures of Lynn Swann against the Oakland Raiders in 1975.
But they did do that, Mike. They showed the USC guy making the catch, and then they showed the comparison of the guy. And I think you're wrong on that. I think they want to know, well, who's he like? And
absolutely, we had that debate before about this on this thing. That's absolutely what the average fan wants to know, and I know that people hate doing it, but it's like it is one of those things that they want to know. That's all I want to know. If I'm watching another sport, that's all I really want to know in hockey. Because I give us credit because Russ, you come on here and talk hockey year long about the regular, but while following prospects too, like you're actually doing double time, and that is something that's not easy to do. I mean, honestly,
no, it takes a lot of time. It does.
I mean, I'm covering trades and on that kind of thing all the time too. But it's just like but the guys who do it, and there's some guys who definitely tried to shift into that. Like you can see NHL guys.
The one thing this broadcast did, and Kevin was right, they showed the passion of the prospects and for the prospects. Like that's what you have to do. If you don't have anybody that's passionate about prospects, like on a TV broadcast, it's not going to come off well.
I got one more thing to say, and it's NHL related, so I want to do it, and we'll start talking about it. And Russ can speak more to this certainly than I can, because I haven't. Normally, I would watch the U18, but I've been busy and haven't been able to watch it. I talked to a friend of mine this morning who has been watching it, and was just talking about how impressive the American team is, and he rattled off 5 players who have just really been good, and said, look, I don't know anything about the draft, but I'm pretty sure that these 5 players are all guys that everybody's talking about now, because they
might have 7 first rounders.
Yeah. He thought there were 5 in particular that he
There's
said
5 definitely, but I think it could be 6 or 7. And it is a great team. I thought they were going to win gold out of the gate, but so did a lot of people. You know what the big edge they have, Kev, is? And this is something that Canada definitely suffered from. With the U.S. all being in the same building in that USA Hockey Arena, with the under-17 team there and the 18 team there, there's a lot of continuity that teams sometimes have to build, and they've got it instantly. That's why they have the edge in the under-18s, but don't really have the edge in the World Junior, because most of those guys are in college at that point.
Right.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. All right, here we go. Here we go. It's Friday already. Hello, Hockey World. It is Friday, April 29th, 2022.
I'm Michael Agello, and my appearance in Toronto is brought to you by this bottled Coke.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Kevin Allen, Hockey Buzz.
I'm Nick Lind, and I chemically burned myself from head to toe while trying to do my deck. It's really bad. It's really bad. I mean, I have like chemical burn. It's just like,
oh boy,
man, stain, paint stripper. Really got to like dress up in like a big white, like full bodysuit. So anyway,
has the doctor bill exceeded what the quote was yet for the?
No, but if the over-under of my wife saying, "Why are you doing this?" was at 5, and she's already hit that number. So anyway, we're good. Anyway, there you have it. So all right, but let's get into it. This is the Hockey Buzzcast. which comes every Friday at this time to fill you in Cummings and Going Hockey World, brought to you by Peter Puck. Here we go. We have one night left, and let's first talk about last night for a second. Then we're going to get into the NHLPA voting because that was kind of interesting too. Last night, I got to start with the Predators game because I honestly felt like that was the interesting game of the night. And I know it probably maybe wasn't to some people, but man, it was a game. It was, and watching that game, and you realize we talk about matchups and what matchups mean. And I don't think Colorado wants anything to do with Nashville in the first round. I think they'd rather have Dallas after that game. The Predators' physicality in one game showed big time against Colorado in that game, and they pounded them. And David Riddick, for what it's worth, Riddick comes in and he gets up 3 goals in the first period and everything. Oh, this is doomsday for Nashville. I was like, this is terrible, terrible, terrible stuff. Just shuts the door from that point on. Like, just had like an amazing and an incredible game. He's at his best when he's not going down too quickly, not going down too fast, and he's keeping his body more upright. And he was doing that. So like even when he goes down, he's a big goalie. So when he goes down his knees, he keeps his body up. He's still blocking a lot of the upper net. He just made some big saves at big times, and the Predators just worked their tails off. And I was watching the Predators broadcast, going back and forth between 2 different broadcasts, and the Predators, guys who I really like, the broadcast guys, Chris Mason, the old goalie. I like the guy. Hearing him talk about it, like, this is like one of the hardest working Predators teams he's ever been around, and you can see that, and they're starting. I mean, they played over the last 2 games. They played the 2 teams they could play in the first round. They played Calgary and they played Colorado in the last 2 games. Not to mention, they also played St. Louis and they played Tampa in the last 2 games before that. So in Minnesota, they played the tough schedule. The Predators have. They definitely. I mean, the Calgary Flames can match them, and the Calgary Flames and the Predators will beat the hell out of each other physically. But I don't know that Colorado can, and that was an interesting thing to watch last night. Like, if those 2 teams meet up in the first round, I am not sure which way I'm going on that.
You're going to base it on this game with
come on, please.
I'm basing it on also. Let me finish some momentum that I see. And just listen. I'm not going to base it on that game. Kemper gave up a couple of bad goals. You guys know I need Kemper to prove it to me that he can be a playoff goalie before I'm going to go there. But yeah, that's just my thought.
What I think you're saying, because I think you're overemphasizing game 81 way too much. But one thing I think is contrasting styles. And Calgary, Nashville is like a couple bulls in the ring bashing heads against each other. Whereas Colorado is a more skilled team, and I think eventually they would beat Nashville, but they're going to be bloodied if they play Nashville. I think they would rather play Dallas than Nashville.
Yeah, just because they don't want to get beat up. But what's interesting is I made note of this in my column yesterday. I went and looked at the last. Actually, I looked at the last 15 games of all the playoff teams. And by far, there was only one team that, had a losing record, and that was the Nashville Predators. They haven't been able to beat that team. But, as I pointed out, they're hard to play against. They're physical. They've got guys that hit you. They have some bigger guys, and they're a pain in the butt. But if you're the Colorado Avalanche and you expect to win the Cup, you can't be worried. Now, I don't disagree that they would prefer not to play them just because, but I don't think they're afraid of losing to them. I just think they're a pain in the butt.
I mean, they have to. There is a lot of pressure now. Colorado, remember, it's not getting out of the second round because they've gotten out of the first round a bunch of times. Like that for them, it's about the second.
Well,
round.
It's about winning. They've been the favorite since July, the betting favorite. So I think if you're that, I mean, if you're worried about the Colorado Avalanche in terms of beating you, then you're not going to win the Cup.
Right.
That's the way I look at it. Now, that doesn't mean they want to play them because I think there is something to be said for that. You don't want to play teams that, are gonna pound you. But you got to beat good teams to. Yeah,
you got to be good.
I think Nashville has to score 3 goals a game to outdo the Riddick factor, and that's going to be hard.
Yeah, and I think the Saros factor is pretty major for the Predators.
It's huge. It's huge. And I'm not saying if that series matches up, I'm going to pick Predators to win the series. I'm not saying that at all. But I'm just saying that is not there is a universe where the Predators can win that series, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. And
listen, there's a universe where the Leafs won the Stanley Cup, but I mean,
Yeah.
well, it doesn't happen.
It could be one, but it may only be 1 out of 10.
Right, I'm with Kevin on that. I am.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that's almost true in every series. I rarely run across a series that I couldn't convince myself that if they played 10 times over 3 months,
Yeah,
that
it
teams
is
could
true,
win.
but it is true. But last night you got a glimpse into how it could be true. Actually, physically watched it, and you always think that that's possible. But last night you saw the possibility. You saw how the Predators would have to play to beat Colorado, and that they can actually do that.
I think both things could be true. I think it can be true that they would rather not play them because they don't, want to be sore when they're done. But I don't think they're afraid of them.
Right,
so.
Right. I buy that.
And Russ, you're talking about the multiverse, not the universe.
Tonight. So tonight it'll be decided. Okay, we're looking at. Okay, so Nashville's a point up. They have the tiebreaker. So Nashville just needs a point. But they're a point up They have Arizona, which is a late game tonight. Earlier, Dallas has Anaheim at home. So it'll be determined tonight on the ice, which is fun. That's fun. Now, when you look at the incentive, how much of an incentive is there to play Calgary instead of Colorado? Colorado is being that good. Is there really a big incentive? To me,
they're different kinds of poisons.
Yeah, so. to me, like I've always said before, I don't want to play the better goalie. So like if I'm looking at I'm like I want to stay away from Calgary because honestly, Calgary has they might have the best goalie in the Western Conference.
This is the playoffs act. Like you're right. Jacob Markstrom had an amazing regular season, right? But in the playoffs, you don't know who the good goalie is going to be. Like I honestly.
Okay, I'll say it this way. Markstrom is the better of the two goaltenders. I think Colorado's defense is better with the dynamic Makar and Devin Taves. Yeah. But I think Calgary is essentially a one-line offensive team with that Lindholm, Goudreau, Kachuk line.
No doubt.
Right, whereas Colorado comes at you with three. If everybody's healthy, if Kadri's back, if Landeskaga's back, you're talking 3 offensive lines, and they're impossible to shut down. So
they got to be able to shift into full speed right away, Mike. You know what I mean? That's the thing. That's what's tough about getting all those guys back at the same time. They're all healthy. They're all ready to go.
I think there's a matchup issue there, with Calgary and Colorado, because like with Colorado, like with what Mike said, when you have like Nishushkin's line out there, that's going to be hard to match up. That's there's a lot of talent on that third line.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I would say about it. I really wanted to believe that Calgary was the better team. I talked about that, and I wanted to do it. And again, this goes to my theory that everything we've learned about hockey over the last 30 years is no longer true, because we've all talked about the little things, the importance of winning faceoffs and all that. Calgary is much better at penalty killing, faceoffs, and all that than Colorado. But when I've seen Colorado and Calgary play, there's no comparison. Colorado looks like the better team, but on paper, Calgary should be better because they do all the little things better, and they're hard to play against. Calgary is very hard to play against. So
here's the other thing that I noticed, Kev, about last night. Okay, Philip Forsberg is going to be very expensive. All right, not just that we talked about. They haven't signed him yet. They haven't signed him yet.
Well, I can't. He can't get much more expensive than the $9 million that he wants.
I know. But when you watch him, he reminds me right now.
Hold on, Eck. He broke the net too last night, so he's got to pay for that too.
He reminds me right now of where Panarin was at the end with Columbus. Where you saw Panarin was great. Panarin was great. You also saw Panarin had this other level. Forsberg last night showed that other level a couple times. Like in the overtime, he hits the post on one shot, and then he comes down and takes another, goes through the webbing of Kemper's glove, broke the webbing in his glove. I mean, this is like this guy is just and then he turns Girardi inside out on one play like ridiculously. Gerard turns him inside out. Man, Philip Forsberg has definitely found another level to his game, and if he plays like that in the playoffs, he's dangerous. And if he plays like that in the playoffs, he's expensive. Like he could be more than $9 million.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think his ceiling.
I don't think he's more than that.
No, I don't either.
Let's switch to the East, because I think that the whole thing that unfolded last night as I'm following the scores, just it baffles me because okay, first of all, the Islanders beat Washington. Washington I believe they're 1 point behind Pittsburgh, and that was the game in hand. So now, Washington to get out of that second wild card spot, it has to win and has to hope that Pittsburgh loses. But the whole thing in the Atlantic right now, Tampa Bay loses in Columbus 5-2. Not a very good performance by the Lightning. Boston shuts out Buffalo. So now Boston is 1 point behind Tampa for third place.
Yeah.
Tampa plays the Islanders tonight, the team that they eliminated in Game 7 of the semifinal last year. And the Islanders played well against Washington. So I don't think that that's a game that the Islanders are going to lay down for. And I'm wondering whether Tampa ends up sitting some of their players. And here in Toronto, it's the battle of the Providence versus the Toronto Marlies. The Leafs are sitting Tavares, Matthews, Marner, and Campbell. They're playing 11 forwards. They called up Joey Anderson. I'm not casting aspersions on Joey Anderson, but he hasn't played for the Leafs all year, and they call him up in Game 82. And from the reports I got from some of the Bruins reporters, they could be sitting as many as 6 to 8 of their regulars. So
this is both teams trying to lose this game. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
No. I think, okay. None of the Leaf players or Sheldon Keefe said, no, we're going to go out and lose, because they're not going to do that.
Of course not. But deep down, I mean, it's a matter of putting players in the ice.
Based on the fact that they've set Marner, Matthews, and Tavares, yeah, I think they want to lose.
Yeah, I don't think it quite works like that. I've talked to players through the years about that, and players do have preferences for who they like to play. But I'll give an example. I talked with someone this week. It was actually within the Tampa Bay Lightning organization. Wasn't anybody that really mattered, but has familiarity with the way to do things. And they said the way it works in Tampa is everyone's got their opinions about the way it works. He says once you know your opponent, the focus is just on winning, and it's just on the team. And if any team understands how to win, it is the Lightning, and they know they got to win 4 rounds. So the opponent becomes, once you're into the playoffs and you get started, the opponent becomes less of the issue than playing well and getting organizing and figuring out how to beat who's ever in front of you. Now, he said, I'm not saying that they all don't have their opinions, but he said the idea that we would try to manipulate it just doesn't work like that, because because you don't know, you could be wrong. Like you don't know how that other team is going to be once they get to you.
And that's what Wayne Simmons and Keefe said, is if we're just preparing for the playoffs, whoever we play is whoever we play. And of course that is the right mentality to have, and that is the right thing to say, because if all of a sudden you say, oh, we don't want to play Boston, then you've given them bulletin board material.
But I think it's true. I mean, I do, like, I'm not saying they don't have opinions on who they would like to play, because they all do. But a lot of the times, as Tom Laidlaw said on podcasts, a lot of your opinions of who you do and don't want to play is based on whether or not you like to deal with certain guys, or whether they are yappers and you hate dealing with that stuff, or there's a goalie that you can't seem to score against. He said it's things that a coach is not going to worry about. So
and Keefe said basically, it's a little bit of a disadvantage that we don't know on the Friday before the playoffs start who we're playing, because we're probably starting the playoffs on Monday, so that gives you 2 days. Now, you played this team 4 times during the regular season, but I get that point. But from a educated observer myself, watching those 2 teams, if I could drive the Leafs into the ocean, into an iceberg, to lose to the Bruins, to play them instead of Tampa Bay, I would do it, because I think they have no chance against Tampa, and they think they have a good chance against Boston. But this is the guy who said they had a good chance against Montreal, and how the hell did that turn out?
Here's the thing, right? I mean, everybody's looking like, hey, we'd rather play Carolina, who is, by the way, has won 6 in a row. Like the Hurricanes, it's like they are. You want to play Carolina because it looks, and now Anderson could be back at some point in the first one all of a sudden. But the reality of this is this, the Rangers, it's really fascinating how the second place teams are in control tonight in a lot of situations. Toronto's in control. of who they're going to play. The Rangers are also in control of who they're going to play. Like the Rangers and the Penguins tonight. If the Rangers knock the Penguins out and Boston, and the Capitals win, they play the Capitals tonight, right? That's right. I'm sorry, they play the Capitals.
Yes.
Well, Toronto's not really in control, because if Tampa wins, then there is no control. Then it's Toronto, Tampa. They need Tampa.
I mean, if Toronto wins, they're in control. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
because they're in control if they win. I mean, if they win, they're in control. If they don't win, they're not in control. I mean, for Tampa, do they want to get out of the Atlantic Division? You know what I mean? Like dealing with Carolina, New York, Rangers, Pittsburgh, Washington might be better than dealing with Toronto and Washington and Toronto and Florida. I mean, Toronto and Florida, I would argue, are better than Carolina and the Rangers with the Capitals.
But I still think, you got to win 4 rounds of 16.
Win 4 rounds for sure. And I
mean, that's how they view it.
Champions, like defending champions shouldn't care.
When you go into playoffs, what do you see on the wall? The countdown to 16 wins. 16. And you see it in all the rooms. Nobody is listed like the opponents or anything else. It's just W's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you try to manage it, Kevin, it really can come back to bite you in the ass. And like I said, with Toronto last year, not that they said, "Oh, we want to play Montreal," but it ended up being Montreal, and there was a lot of confidence on the part of Toronto last year, and that all evaporated once Tavares got hurt. So,
don't you think in the first 3 rounds, as this was setting up, the players said, "Geez, I hope we can play Montreal." Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think everybody felt confident going into that series in Montreal against Montreal. All 3 teams they won against were confident.
I mean, if the situation were reversed and they would need and a lot, they would play Tampa. So, would they be matching all these guys?
Say that again, Zach?
So say the situation was reversed and a loss now means that they probably lost to Boston tonight means they probably play Boston. They could play Boston.
Correct.
If a loss tonight, they could play Tampa. Would they be scratching these guys as well? Were they doing the same?
I think they probably would, because they want to get Matthews and Marner and Tavares some rest. But I do, they even though Matthews sat out like 4 or 5 games recently with an injury, I think they would have rested. They announced Marner and Matthews were not going to play yesterday before the game results from last night. So they added Tavares to it, but it was going to be 50-50 one way or the other. So I don't think it would have changed anything.
Tavares is a pretty big ad. It's a pretty big scratch.
Yeah. That's another thing too. Most players I've talked to through the years, they understand the idea of resting, but most of them would prefer not to do it.
Yeah. They like to keep their rhythm going. I mean, and there's a feeling of like, if I'm playing well, like right now, like Stamkos, for example, like, it's just, he's having this epic run like no one's ever seen. Right. And it's just like, it's this great 3 points a game type stuff, like, I mean, not last night, maybe, but what did he have 2 last night? I didn't even say, but he's been going at this incredible, ridiculous pace. Stamkos. Do you want to rest him right now? Like, do you want to pull him out of a game? Like, I mean, like if he's playing like that, like we want to rest.
With his injury history, playing back-to-back games in 81 and 82, I would rest him.
Yeah, although what I would argue is, I mean, do you suddenly feel rejuvenated because you didn't play 1 game? I mean, if you're nursing an injury, that's a different story. But does 1 day game off really make a difference?
Yeah,
Kevin, I think it's more preventing them from getting hurt than it is resting.
Exactly right. I don't think it's the rest. I think we call it rest, but I think I don't want them hurt.
I don't know if you guys remember back to the Russ Farwell era in Philadelphia, but but do you remember the year when he came in and decided to send Bobby Clark and Bernie Perrant, but Bobby Clark and Bill Barber on a vacation in the middle of the year for a week to rest up?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
Oh, it was a crazy situation. It was a crazy thing. It's like, they sent him to Florida. They're like, here's take your family to Florida for a week in the middle of the season, because he felt like they needed to. And Bobby Clark was so pissed off about it. Like he was so angry about it. I never really heard what Barber thought when it was, but it was kind of like, it is kind of ridiculous. That was sort of like, these anytime you Claude Giroux was pissed off that he couldn't play against the Ottawa Senators the night before he was traded. That was 1 game. He couldn't have played his 1,001st game as a Flyer. he wanted to play that game. Not that it was because of 1001, but because his team was playing. And you don't tell me I can't play when my team is playing unless I'm hurt. These guys feel that way.
Yeah, but you do have to exercise caution with someone like Stamkos. You really do.
I know.
You can play him like the first period, then I'm not playing him the rest of the game.
I would sit Stamkos. I would sit Kucherov. I'd sit Hedman. No, they didn't. They played Elliott last night, so they're going to play Vasilevsky.
Right.
But I would sit. I would. What I heard from Elliott Friedman, and that might be the case, they're so tight against the cap they can't call up players from Syracuse so they may have to unless they have guys extra on the roster, like there are 2 or 3 extra players, but they may be carrying 21 players just because they don't have enough space on the cap.
Yeah. We also had a little bit interesting. Minnesota, St. Louis tonight. They're still playing for home ice tonight on both.
That's for home ice,
and honestly, normally I would say, that's extremely important. With these teams, they're so even. I don't know if it's important at all.
Yeah, I know. Like you believe in matchups and everything. St. Louis has won all 3.
St. Louis is
games. That's ridiculous. I mean, Minnesota could sweep them. I mean, you just don't know. I mean, they're so close.
Well, Kevin, you're going to put your money where your mouth is here because you are going to go face to face with the matchup god. All right, when you predict your games, and you're going to see who the matchup god's going to go against all of us. And so we're going to all make our picks. Plus, the matchup god will make his picks, and we're going to see who wins.
Well, I'm definitely going against that because the matchup god is going to take St. Louis in that one, and I'm going to probably take Minnesota. Yeah.
Yeah, really. But here's what I would say.
That'd be interesting. You did your article today about St. Louis too. You wrote a great article.
Ownership wants to win the game because ownership will make $2 million more with the extra home game.
Yes, that is a big factor, especially in the age of COVID.
They'll always go down in the locker room and tell the players that, hey, this is money we could use.
Yeah, we need to pay the hot dog people.
But, that Minnesota St. Louis matchup, like, who would? I mean, if you said this at the beginning of the season, nobody would have believed it. But that's the number 4, number 5 offensive teams in the league.
Yeah,
no.
I mean, you just don't think of those 2 teams as no. So I mean, that's that's just the way it goes. And neither team is ranked, and their scores are reflective of that. The scores in that series have been, I think, 4-3, 6-4, and 5-4.
Yeah,
neither team is ranked in the top 10 defensively.
Yeah,
so
that's crazy, right?
Although that's a little bit misleading because I think Minnesota's issue was in goal, and in theory, that's now been corrected.
Right.
So
that's an interesting thing. We'll talk about
if they actually play them.
Yeah, right. We'll talk about this because
that's fair. Yeah.
Talbot, right? It's 12-3 in his last 15 games. Talbot, and as much as we sit here, you say you have to play Fleury. You went and got Fleury. 12-3 is pretty telling. Like that's a pretty big number.
I'll tell you, this is what I would say about that too. I don't know whether Russo has said anything. Russo at one point predicted that, or said it was going to be Talbot. But a lot of time you're looking for indicators and I've told the story before about the first time when I met Eklund, he was trying to figure out who was going to play goal and based on who was playing where and the net and everything else. And I said, I don't even remember who it was, but I said, it's going to be that. And he goes, well, how do you know that? And I said, because I asked Jim Matheson the thing and he, he knew. Well, that's what I would say. For your guessing, try to figure out who's going to play net, everything. Just follow Russo on the thing because he's going to know.
But Russo was also dead set that they were never going to trade for Fleury too. It's like he was.
Russo said that.
He was Talbot. Talbot's their guy, no questions about it. Because of the thing that everybody kind of felt like that Guerin was not going to give up a first round draft pick for it, right? That was a big thing.
It was UC Markkinen or Ty Conklin in 2006. That's what it was, Kev. Because I think you mentioned it in a previous show.
We did, and I remember. Yes, and I remember that was a big learning point for me. That was my first Stanley Cup final.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get on to this. So we're going to talk about everything on Monday because we've got the playoffs will start Monday. We'll be back with the whole panel here. We're going to be predicting games. Stuff like that, but let's get into this NHLPA player, which comes out every year. I like the fact. I love the fact they do this. Actually, 500.
I do too.
Yeah, 500 plus players anonymously, so on. The on ice and off ice section. So starting on the on ice section, we talked a little bit about this yesterday. But if you have one goal you want to win, in the one, who do you want that goalie to be if you need to win one game? And not surprisingly, it was Vasilevsky. So I think is 37.4, but surprisingly, Carey Price at 13.9, number 2.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it just speaks to the aura and the feeling, and it's not scientific. It's just how they feel.
Right. And then after that, it got also interesting. Marc-Andre Fleury at 6.7. I'm not really super surprised that Marc-Andre Fleury is in the top 3 there because he has been such money. But then for number 4 was John Gibson at 3.5.
Because John Gibson is a good goaltender. He's just been on bad teams.
Right.
Yeah.
Markstrom, followed by Quick and Saros.
I think it's interesting they don't have Shesterkin on there, and that speaks to he doesn't have a reputation yet within the league, and that's kind of like baloney a little bit. But
but don't you think, Russ? It takes 2 or 3 years before.
I think it takes 2 or 3 years to get like that Carey Price, Gibson sort of reputation. But I think if you're going to start listing all those other guys and ahead of Shesterkin, I think it's like, come on, you face Shesterkin this year, you know what he is.
But other players don't follow the league like we do.
No, that's fair.
Really, they don't. They don't. You talk to players, and some of them do watch a lot of games, but some don't. They're doing other things. But
that's true. That could be a part of it.
Here's one thing that should always be brought up before you have any discussion on the NHLPA poll, and that is when you add up the percentages, what you realize quickly is that a lot of different players are getting votes because the top 3, when you add them up, they only come up to like 60% or 65%.
70% altogether here. You're right.
Yeah. So there's 30% are scattered among a lot of different goalies.
A lot of people. Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
And it's just
watching him the other night and the last couple of weeks. It's an incredible transformation that Jonathan Quick is like.
And if Shesterkin steals one round this year, Russ, he'll be in the top 2 or 3 because then his year will be supported by a steal, so to speak.
Yeah, I guess.
I think
that players need to see him at the NHL awards, winning his awards, and then they'll realize.
I think they need to see him win a big game, playoff game, like not just a regular.
He's going to get awards this year, X. So they're going to see.
They're still going to need to see him win a playoff game.
He's not going to win the Hart because Sorokin's going to. But go ahead.
Right, that's true.
Never said they're going to win the Hart. If you need to win one game, who is the one skater you would want on your team? And 42.4% say Connor McDavid. I'm not surprised about this. 17.3%. Crosby still has a huge amount of respect. Then Hedman at number 3, which is a little bit.
Well, Hedman could be a game changer in the sense that he gets the puck. He hits a guy, gets the puck, passes it to Stamkos, it's a goal. I get the Hedman thing. I would say it's interesting that Crosby is still there. I thought maybe Matthews would have moved into that spot, but I guess he hasn't yet.
He's not in the top 5.
Matthews should be in that.
Yeah.
Mention. But Hedman,
top 5, but he's not.
Hedman is really, I think he's the only rover we have in the NHL.
Yeah,
he really kind of floats around, and or Cale Makar is more of the traditional offensive, the Paul Coffey type offensive defenseman, where Hedman really is, as Mike said, a difference maker in so many different ways. That's the kind of defenseman Moritz Seider is going to be.
And I mean, Carlson used to be that, but he can't stay in the lineup. Brent Burns used to be that way, but he's 37. So, I mean, you've got an immense 6'7" physical specimen who plays 25 minutes a night when he's 100%, and even when he's not 100%, he plays 22 or 23 minutes. So, he is a difference maker. No doubt about it.
Let's put it this way: I don't think you could argue that Yossi has had a better year than Hedman. Yeah, but I would take Hedman over Yossi. Without even thinking.
It's just like, I think based on what Yossi is doing for his team, like he's 3/4 of the team. Like we all know that. But still, if I'm on the ice and my net is empty and we're looking for a goal, do I really want to run into Victor Hedman? No, I do not.
No, and he really reminds me of Pronger, more than anything.
He's a lot like that.
Yeah.
Pronger was such a difference maker too. Also a rover, could like the king kind of thing.
There's a confidence factor too with Hedman. Like he sort of emanates confidence and just sort of spreads it around.
Yeah,
so.
he's
big and he's solid. He's big but doesn't play like a big. He's not awkward at all. He's just big and solid. Barkov got a lot of love in these polls. He's definitely one of those guys I think that the players respect maybe more than the.
Wait, Barkov ahead of Matthews?
Yeah, he's fourth on this list.
That's nuts.
McKimmon.
I will tell you what this is, Russ, and you may not agree. Among the players, there is a distinct anti-Toronto sentiment. There is.
No, I don't believe that. I think because of Barkov, I'll tell you what the difference is. They're picking Barkov, I think, because he's a clear, better defensive player than Matthews, even though Matthews has made a really good effort in that direction. So maybe that's the line of demarcation, but I still would have Matthews.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think there's an anti among players. No. Usually when there's a poll about cities they like to go to or, uniforms, Toronto's always, in the
I think the media might be against Toronto, but I don't think the players are. The players all want to play there. I mean, when the players
they do, players want to play there.
There's no question that they buy more tickets to when they go up to Toronto for their families than anybody else. So I can't imagine the amount of tickets the Leafs have to hold aside for that. Like the Leafs have to hold. They must have. They must have a whole section held aside for.
Well, that's mostly for the Toronto area players, and what happens is the team, each player gets a certain allotment, and the ones who are not from Toronto, they give the tickets to the ones who are from Toronto. So anyway,
best stick handler, they went Patrick Kane, 57.3%.
I think that's still true.
You know what has helped his reputation was that video.
Oh yeah,
I think Connor McDavid is the best stick handler in the league.
No, you know what? If you're going to go second with stick handling, I'm going to go Trevor Zegras over McDavid.
I'll tell them just not even to vote next year. That Eklund has decreed.
No, this is my opinion.
So,
listen.
What about who I just said? Trevor Zegras.
Trevor Zegras is a great.
Is anybody stick handling like him now? Nobody is.
No.
Didn't I see that Logan Cooley? This goes to what I said before. Remember, I said that the lacrosse style goal, the Michigan goal, has become a U.S. national development team deal. You look at the people who can do it. Most of them have come out of there.
Well, they have that shooting room.
And Logan Cooley, I thought I read or heard that he just did it.
Yeah. I haven't watched that game, so I don't know yet. I haven't.
At least I thought that's what I heard that he did.
Proof that hockey, like other sports, is a copycat sport. Matthews has tried to do it and failed in a game. And on Tuesday when the Leafs played Detroit, David Kampf, who is not a skilled player, is more of a defensive forward, tried to do it behind the net. So everybody's going to try to do it when they have enough time behind the net. It's just that's just what's going on now.
We're just talking about stick handling, and I'm telling you, as good as McDavid is, I don't think anybody handles the stick like Trevor Zegras other than Kane. I really don't.
Right. I mean, who else is really good that knowing that when you watch him stick handle is Quinn Hughes. Like Quinn Hughes' ability to handle the stick handle.
Yeah, it's good, but I don't think it's up with Kane.
No, and Matthews has worked with the same skill coach that Kane has, and Matthews has dramatically improved his stick handling. So I'd say he's in the top 5 or 6 in the league. The way I've seen him.
6 on the.
I'm not going to argue that.
Who's the best passer? This, when you talk to players around the league, isn't
best passer is Mitch Marner, but I don't think he's on the list.
He's on the list, but I think the best passer in the league is Leon Draisaitl, flat out. Like I think he's the best.
I think that's
like I really like when you watch Draisaitl in and out, like he is his ability, his playmaking ability is ridiculous. Like,
it's good. It is good. What's this percentage on that though?
The 17.7 at number one.
See, I think the problem with that passing thing is there's so many great passes.
There's a million of them.
Yeah, there's a million of them. So I think they're it's just spread all over the place.
I mean,
Like,
second,
I don't even think you can name a best passer.
I mean, second, Patrick Kane on this list. Second, Patrick Kane again, best.
Yeah, but he's a long-time rep. Like, I'll give you a guy that I go like, wow, after some passes, and that's Johnny Gaudreau. A lot of times I'm like, wow, that was an unbelievable pass.
I mean, I don't know where Huberdeau is on this list, but he's got 85 assists, so he better be one of the best passers in the league.
Right? They're just boring.
I mean, Elias Pettersson, to me, one of the best.
Yeah, Pettersson definitely is a guy, but
is Huberdeau on the list?
No.
Yeah.
Not in the top 5.
What about Gaudreau?
The top 5 are Draisaitl, Kane, Baxter, McDavid, and Kucherov.
Now, what's 5? What's 5? What percentage is number 5?
Kucherov 6.2%. So I mean, there's 34.2% not accounted for on this list. So
yeah.
You're talking about
that's the issue. There's so many guys that are on that list. So
which player do you wish you could shoot like? The players, Alex Ovechkin at 53.1%, and then Austin Matthews at 24%. The number 3, Patrick Laine at 3.4%.
Yeah, that'll flip flop. I mean, Ovechkin is still, he's still got a howitzer, but he's still scoring 50 goals at his age. I mean, but Matthews, and they're different. I mean, Ovechkin has got the one-timer, and Matthews has worked on that. But Matthews it's his wrist shot. His wrist shot is as hard as many players' slap shots.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, now this is where if you wanted to go overboard about Pettersson, I would be with you on the shot.
No,
but he hasn't scored 50 goals or anything, so that's why,
Yeah, no, he does have an incredible
I
shot.
also think you got to sort of define what shot is. Is the shot release and shot, or is it just hardness?
The question is just which player do you wish you could shoot like? That was what the question was. So it really is big.
Zdeno Chara, how about that?
No, for me, it would be Elias Pettersson because it's fluid. It's all the time. It could be anywhere on the ice. I think he has the most fluid one-timer.
He's very fluid in general. Like I think he's as fluid a player as we've seen in the NHL in years. Like I think that just his like I've said before, he's got that, and you hate to throw this comparison out there, but this Gretzky-like fluidity about him. And like you don't see that very often in the league that there's actually, but really watch Pettersson in terms of Gretzky-ish type things. His movements, his skating, I'm not saying he's Gretzky at all. He doesn't have that skill, but he moves like Gretzky moved. He's got that fluidity, which is interesting, I think. Who's the most complete player? The players went with Sidney Crosby at 29.5%.
The most what?
The
most
complete.
Yeah.
Never a bad answer.
No, and what I really like about it, and that'll be coming up, is he's the most complete player and he's the best role model. Like, that's really unbelievable. I mean, that just kind of shows the league-wide admiration for one player, like that he just does it right.
He does.
Yeah.
Number 2 on this list was Barkov, which is a nice, and then number with 20%, Patrice Bergeron at 19.5%.
Yep.
Then McDavid at 9.2%. I wouldn't put McDavid as complete.
I would put McDavid in there now.
I think Matthews is more of a complete player than McDavid.
I do too.
And then Kopitar at 2.6%, which is interesting.
Kopitar is a good one.
Yeah, he is. Which NHL arena has the best ice? Bell Center in
Madison Square Garden. I can tell you that.
Madison Square came in at number 6, which I was really surprised at.
Well, I'm not surprised. It's never been great.
No, but that's good. 6 is good. I mean,
6 out of 32.
Yeah, I mean, okay, 6 out of 32 is better than it used to be. Fine.
Yeah.
It used to be Edmonton, but not that was at the old building. Not anymore, I don't think.
Edmonton's number 2.
Yeah. Yep.
Edmonton's number 2? Okay.
You put Edmonton number 2. Winnipeg at number 3. Because it's always cold there.
It might be Seattle with all their new processes. Who knows?
The T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, which is really impressive at number 4, considering it's 150 degrees there.
Yeah, but that arena is cold, man.
As I hear it's super cold. I have yet to go there. So the Xcel Energy Center at number 5, and then Madison Square Garden, like you said, at number 6. Which player do you least enjoy playing against? This shouldn't be surprising.
Brad Marchand.
Brad Marchand, number 1. Yeah.
Yeah.
26. Connor McDavid, number 2. Actually, the question was, which player do you least enjoy playing against but would like to have on your team? That actually is the full question. So,
Wilson, where's Wilson?
Wilson, number 3.
Yeah.
Hedman number 4 and McKinnon number 5.
Right. But those are two categories. One is somebody who's a pain in the ass like Marchand or Wilson who will beat the crap out of you. The other ones like McKinnon and McDavid, those are the guys who will embarrass you by turning you into a pretzel.
Right, they're very different.
Yeah.
Who's the best current women's hockey player? They asked the NHLers.
Marie-Philippe Poulin.
Yeah,
she's
it was
number
Marie
one.
Philippe Poulin, number 1. I mean, just hard to argue that right now. I mean, she scores every big goal.
Yeah,
possibly
no, she's
score.
in her own class.
She's on her own level. I mean, she may be the best of all time. Some people say. I mean, it's hard to say. Hillary Knight, number 2.
Yep.
Amanda Kessel, 3. Kendall Coyne, 4, and Sarah Nurse, 5.
Amanda Kessel, I think she just got hired by the Penguins.
Year-long minority
Now,
executive.
I might put Brianna Decker ahead of Nurse, but that's okay. That's a good list.
Off ice. What's the best NHL road city to spend an off day? Number 1, the Las Vegas by the.
I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Gee, what a shock.
Number 2, New York City.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Number 3.
I would move Nashville up there to 2.
Yeah,
Not compared
Nashville
to
comes
New
in
York
at 5.
Come on.
Number 3 is Fort Lauderdale. Number 4 is LA, and number 5 is Nashville.
Yeah.
LA
can see
is
that.
a horrible city to hang out in. I don't know why people would put LA on that list, honestly.
LA is a tough one because if you don't have a lot of time and you're looking for transportation to get to somewhere, it's the worst place. At least if you're in New York or Chicago or one of those places, I can walk everywhere.
How about
Okay,
Chicago on this list?
you got to remember who's voting on this.
Yeah, I know.
They're players. They get in an Uber. They say beach.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
you're right. These are all very, very hot places. I mean, like, except for New York.
And you notice Toronto is not on that list.
Mike,
If
come
this-
on.
if this
How
list
is
was done by-
Toronto going to compare with these places? Shut up.
If I was doing this, if you list on fans though, I'd still put Nashville at the top. Which NHL player could make it in another sport? People think. So
Tom Wilson is a
There's
boxer.
bunch of guys that can golf. So
So I think you have to go Jarno Nurse because his uncle's Donovan McNabb. His dad was a football player. It's pretty obvious he could play another sport.
It was interesting because the highest one on this got 4%. I mean, this is a really random type thing. But Joe Pavelski in golf at 4%.
Okay.
Andrews Lee at football at 3.6%.
I told
Yeah,
you
but-
Philip Forsberg plays a little baseball, so
I heard this one, and the fact that they put, I think, Zdeno Chara for basketball. He's 6'9". He'd get stuffed by most of the power forwards in the
yeah, he'd be
NBA.
too slow. He'd be too slow.
Right.
Ryan Reeves could play football, probably true. But I guess then Clayton Keller, Greg McKegg, and Gustav Nyquist
Greg
and Sam
McKegg?
Lafferty. These are all golfers. Lafferty, Nyquist,
Oh, okay.
Brandon Shea. Player personality. Which NHL player has the best hockey hair? The winner was Cody Eakin.
Yeah, Eakin's got like this crazy quaff these days. I saw Eakin like a week ago live. Like I literally walked past him, and when he walked past us, everybody in the media, because we were waiting on a couple guys for interviews, and we're doing them old style again. We all said, "Did you see Cody Eakin's hair?" We did. All said it.
Well, it's definitely not Mark Giordano because he's bald.
No, I give it to Cody Eakin. If you've seen him up close, you would be like, "Oh my God, what is
He's got
going
like the
on?"
red punk.
Giordano, that's 8% of the players in the league now.
Yeah, it's true.
Exactly.
Which NHL player is best follow on social media? PK Subban, they went with 16.3.
You know, Marchand's probably one of the other because
I
Marchand
would say
third.
Martin was number 1.
yeah,
Marchand was third. Austin Matthews number 2 on this list, 11.8.
Matthews
Yeah.
just pushes stuff. I don't think he.
Yeah, all he does is push his like
He doesn't
fashion
talk
things,
to
his fashion things, and bet99.net. So you know, like,
Huberdeau is
And his bad
3.4%. I never followed Huberdeau. I have to check out those stats about. NHL player best role model. Kevin talked about Sidney Crosby got 42.7%. Best role model, players just the respect that Crosby has around the league is
Yeah, I mean nobody can touch Crosby for that.
obviously evident. Yeah,
He's the closest. Crosby is the closest thing to Gretzky as a role model as we've ever seen in hockey.
Yep.
he's probably as probably maybe the second most beloved player of all time. Like as far as maybe.
Well, I don't think that's actually true.
no.
Okay.
There's a lot of dislike of Sidney Crosby. Like here in Michigan, there is really almost an anti-Crosby
No,
movement.
but among players,
Yeah.
I'm saying among players.
Oh, well, among players, I think that's true, but
Right,
Among
but
players,
not very well liked.
if
So,
you're talking historically, I mean, they tell Gordie Howe was a god.
yeah,
I mean,
Gordy and Wayne, I think were the two.
But Gordy was different. He was more like relatable as like a regular guy. Crosby, it's all about the work ethic, showing up to work, overcoming injuries, not being a jerk. Like he's a jerk on the ice sometimes, but he's not a jerk in interviews. It's all of that.
Yeah.
I knew I met a guy from Malta, and he told the story of he grew up on the island of Malta, and he knew Gordie Howe when he immigrated here because they had newsreels on the movies, and in the newsreels they would talk about this Adonis who was playing hockey, and so when he came in. He immigrated to Detroit. He already knew who Howe was and became an instant hockey fan because
Detroit.
Yeah, I do want to add, Baron Miguel Cicluna was from the Isle of Malta too. He was a WWE wrestler, WWF wrestler. Back
oh
in
my
the day.
God, I can't believe you pulled that name out, Russ.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They also said
That was the thing. It was I never heard of Malta. It was like from the Isle of Malta. I was like, where the hell is that?
they also said Bergeron was second, McDavid third, and
Where do you think malt liquor came from? No, just kidding.
Marc-Andre Fleury came in at fourth. And then they asked the players, what non-NHL athlete would you like to trade places with for a day? And
LeBron.
Tom Brady came up number one.
Oh, okay.
Mike's favorite, Tiger Woods, was number two.
Oh yeah. He's a great role model.
Number three was not role model. It's who you want to trade places with. Number three was LeBron. Number seven was Federer. And number four was Federer, and number five was Ronaldo. So yeah, I mean these are
Any baseball player? Did Mike Trout make that or no?
not a baseball player on this list.
Wow.
No.
Because Canadians love
I don't think a
baseball.
hockey player could possibly stand the excitement that is baseball. So
No, shut up. Because Canadians
Jesus,
love baseball.
I know they do.
And a lot of them have played it.
Yeah,
No,
the only one in this panel who hates baseball is in the top left-hand corner.
Yeah.
I don't hate baseball, and I played baseball my whole life. I'm playing it.
Oh
is
yeah,
fun,
yeah. You played baseball. Like when's the last time you played baseball?
Well, it was high school, but it's been a while.
He's an all.
You're the
I
Al
was
Bundy.
in the Little League. I was in the Little League World Series for.
Right, you're the Al Bundy of baseball. That's great.
Yeah, he's an all-star pickleball player now. Come on.
You were in the Little League World
I went
Series.
to the Atlantic. Yeah, the Atlantic. I mean, like the early rounds of it. Not like the actual. But I was with the All-Star team that played it.
Yeah, my team got eliminated in one of the early rounds too.
We were eliminated really quickly, but we won 2 games. I guess it was. For in New Jersey Atlantic Division as a catcher. But yeah, I mean, I like playing baseball, but like watching it now. And I put it on all the time. It's on in the house every day. But I don't know, just kind of part of summer to me. It makes me feel like it's summer, so I put it on.
We'll put it on today, and you'll watch the Mets beat the Phillies.
I most likely will. All right, that's all the time we have for today. Tonight, make sure you have your plenty of soup and towels, and you're all ready to go because we got a long night ahead of us. And we're going to see who plays who, and then Monday we will break that all down for you. Make sure you check
I'm
out.
going to a completely meaningless game, but that's okay.
Yes, you are. How about the Flyers? That was the fun of having to go to Winnipeg.
I know, right? Close to the end of the year.
Team that has nothing to play for has to go to Winnipeg. Anyway,
At least it was warm.
yeah, right. Remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey, but we have one more night of regular season, then the fun begins next week. Talk to you then. Enjoy your weekend. Get outside. Fix your deck. See what you can do.
You've got to press the button.
It's not automatic.
I forgot. My wife and I are playing in the pickleball tournament on Sunday, by the way. Look out.
Siri, shut off the show.